Hello, I am Tuệ An. Welcome to Insightful Journey. Today, we won't talk about the big things out there, but we will turn inward, looking deeply at something very familiar, something we use every day. That is, words. Have you ever been in this situation? A fun evening, and you casually blurt out a joke. Everyone laughs heartily. You feel so witty. But then, you turn and catch the eye of one person, the subject of that joke. Their eyes cloud over, their forced smile fades, and in that moment, you realize you've just shattered something that no glue can fix. Let me tell you the story of Min. Min was a successful, intelligent man, known for being frank. Min was always proud of his honesty. He often said, "I say it as it is. Better to lose face now than later. If you can handle it, you're a friend." In his close circle of friends was Hung, a kind friend whose career was facing a slight setback. At a class reunion, as everyone was raising their glasses, someone asked Hung about his recently failed startup project. Hung hesitated, not knowing what to say, when Min, with a little alcohol in him, slapped his friend's shoulder and said loudly, "Oh well, Hung's projects always end up halfway. That's just his fate. Dream big and then end up back at square one. Come on, drink to forget the sorrow." The whole table burst into laughter, thinking Min was motivating his friend in a rough way. But Hung didn't laugh. Hung quietly put his wine glass down, his face bowed low. Hung only stayed for 5 more minutes, then excused himself to leave early. Min, at the time, still thought he was just joking, just spurring his friend on. But Min didn't know that those words were the last straw. They crushed the last bit of self-esteem Hung had left during the darkest period of his life. After that day, Hung silently left the group chat. Min called, Hung didn't answer. Min went to his house, Hung avoided him. A 20-year friendship suddenly vanished after just one 10-second sentence. By the time Min realized the issue, it was too late. He lost his closest confidant, not because he was a bad person, but because he used his words like a knife, thinking he was peeling fruit, but actually stabbing someone's heart. Does Min's story sound familiar to you? Has it ever been the case that in the name of frankness, feedback, or joking, we have unintentionally inflicted deep wounds on others? We often hear the saying, "Words are wind." But the truth is, words never blow away. They embed in the mind, enter the subconscious, and remain there, sometimes for a lifetime. A word of encouragement can save a destiny, but a word of contempt can push someone into the abyss. The tragedy is, when we cut someone's hand with a knife, we see the blood and rush to bandage it. But when we use words to make someone's heart bleed, we don't see the wound, so we remain indifferent until that person leaves us. But hold on, do you know what the most frightening thing about wounding words is? It's not just the harm it does to the listener. This next part is what should truly shock us into awakening. It is the destruction it causes to the speaker themselves. In Buddhist philosophy, there is a profound concept called right speech, one of the 8 paths, eightfold path, to liberation and peace. Right speech, simply put, is not just about not lying. It also means not engaging in divisive talk, not spreading rumors, and especially not speaking harsh words. Why did the Buddha place the act of guarding the mouth in such an important position? Because words are energy. When you utter a hurtful word, who is the first person to hear it? It is your own ears. Who is the first person to feel that negative vibration? It is your heart and your brain. From a psychological perspective, when we criticize, judge, or mock others, it is often a mechanism of projection. We feel insecure, inferior, or angry inside ourselves, and we use words to vent that energy onto others, to feel stronger or wittier. In Min's case, Perhaps deep down, he also feared failure, and he used putting whom down to reassure his own ego that I am fine. But the law of karma is extremely fair. You throw a handful of hot coals at someone else. You don't know if they'll get burned, but your hand is definitely scalded first. A person who constantly speaks wounding words, their soul is never peaceful. They nurture the seed of resentment every day, and gradually they attract superficial relationships and constant weariness. They are lonely even within their own noisy crowd. Karma of speech is not punishment from the divine. Karma of speech is the inevitable result of using the energy of words incorrectly. You sow the wind of words, you reap the storm in your soul. So how do we practice right speech amidst this pressure-filled life? How do we avoid becoming a saint in words, snake in heart, or one of those toxic, frank people? I want to share with you an extremely simple yet powerful filter. Whenever you are about to say something, especially when angry or wanting to comment on someone, slow down for 3 seconds and ask yourself these 3 questions, known as the Socrates filter. Question 1. Is what I am about to say true? If it's a rumor, if it's speculation, stop. But even if it is true, ask the second question. Question 2. Is what I am about to say kind? Does this statement come from love, from the desire for the other person to improve, or only to satisfy your ego, to vent anger, to prove yourself right? If it is true but cruel, reconsider. And the third most important question, is this necessary to say right now? Is there any benefit? Or will saying it only stir up more trouble? Back to Min's story. After a long period of self-reproach, Min sought out Hong. This time, it was no longer the loud, frank Min. Min sat down, and the first sentence he spoke was, "I'm sorry, man. I said terrible things that day not because I hated you, but because I was so thoughtless and foolish." Hong said nothing, just nodded. The friendship may never return to its former intimacy, for spilled water is hard to retrieve. But Min learned the biggest lesson of his life, the power of words. From then on, Min began practicing loving speech. Instead of criticizing employees, he learned to give constructive feedback. Instead of complaining, he spoke words of gratitude. Instead of mocking, he chose to remain silent and smile. And strangely, Min's life became much lighter. My dear friend, taming the mouth is half of life's practice. Practicing right speech does not mean you have to become a smooth talker, a sycophant, or artificial. Practicing right speech is learning to be honest but kind. It is knowing when to speak and knowing when to be silent. It is understanding that every person we meet is fighting some kind of difficult battle. So if you can speak gentle words, speak them. If you cannot, please offer them a peaceful silence. Start today. Write at dinner with your family or in a text message to a friend. Try to bite your tongue 7 times literally. Breathe, observe your mind, and then speak. You will find that when your words are as beautiful as flowers, your life will also be fragrant. Don't wait until you lose something to learn how to speak words of appreciation. Don't let your words be a knife. Let them be a healing remedy. You were not born to hurt others with words. You were born to use language to connect with love. If you see yourself somewhere in this story, leave a comment to share. A confession is also the first step of healing. And remember, I am Tuệ An. I am still here if you need me.